Good morning, and welcome to our Unitarian Universalist Church of Sarasota and our Lakewood Ranch Unitarians, as well as our guests and visitors. We begin this morning with some projected printed announcements and a prelude by Don Bren. We offer a special welcome to our visitors. We hope while you are visiting us that on the homepage, you'll take a moment to click on the banner marked Welcome Visitors. This will take you to a special page that gives you information about our congregation and about Unitarian Universalism. We hope you'll explore it at your leisure. Also, while you're there, we hope that you will sign our virtual guest book. That will get you our weekly newsletter called The Contact, which gives you a lot of information about what's going on in the congregation. We also will send you our links to the various meetings that we have through Zoom meetings and gatherings, and we hope that you will try those as you are able. That is an important way to get to know us better and to feel more connected. Also, you'll note on the page there is a donate button. In this time of pandemic, it is important for us to continue to be generous. And so we invite you to take a moment to donate so that we can continue our programming here in the congregation. At the end of the service, we will have a coffee hour. That is a Zoom meeting as well as most of our other gatherings, and you can use the same link you used to attend the forum this morning. If you are new to the congregation, if you sign up for the virtual guest book, We'll send you that link so that you can join us next week. Finally, the Arts Council invites Unitarian Universalist Church of Sarasota and Lakewood Ranch members and friends to be part of our next online members exhibit. The show will go up on our website in February, so we invite you to submit your work by February 5th. Further details are available in our newsletter, The Contact. We continue in a moment with the lighting of our chalice, so we invite you now to gather a candle, or if you have a chalice at home, and join us in a moment when we spark the flame here.
Join me now as we light our chalice. We light our chalice in the spirit of a reading by Gretchen Haley. Flame, here, stir up your steadfast hope, your resolute clarity of what remains possible. Be generous with your dreaming and brave. All paths to the future are born in this courage of imagination, this willingness to shed, to salvage, to start again, to be the blessing for each other, to be this blessed. Come, let us worship together. We have lighted this chalice in the spirit of the fourth principle, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Join us now as we sing together hymn number 1018 in the hymnal, Come and Go With Me. Now let us center our minds and our hearts in these words by Tandika, The Legacy of Caring. Despair is my private pain, born from what I have failed to say, failed to do, failed to overcome. Be still, my inner self. Let me rise to you. Let me reach down into your pain and soothe you. I turn to you to renew my life. I turn to the world, to the streets of the city, the worn tapestries of brokerage firms, crack dealers, private estates, personal things in the bag lady's cart. Rage and pain in the faces that turned from me, afraid of their own inner worlds. This common world I love anew as the lifeblood of generations who refuse to surrender their humanity to the inhumane world courses through my veins. From within this world, my despair is transformed to hope, and I begin anew the legacy of caring. And now we will center in silence, and that will be followed by our singing together, Spirit of Life.
Our reading this morning is taken from the writing of Arundhati Roy and her essay, The Pandemic is a Portal. Whatever it is, coronavirus has made the mighty kneel and brought the world to a halt like nothing else could. Our minds are still racing back and forth, longing for a return to quote-unquote normality, trying to stitch our future to our past and refusing to acknowledge the rupture. But the rupture exists, and in the midst of this terrible despair, it offers us a chance to rethink the doomsday machine we have built for ourselves. Nothing could be worse than a return to normality. Historically, pandemics have forced humans to break with the past and imagine their world anew. This one is no different. It is a portal, a gateway between one world and the next. We can choose to walk through it, dragging the carcasses of our prejudice and hatred, our avarice, our data banks and dead ideas, our dead rivers and smoky skies behind us. Or we can walk through lightly, with little luggage, ready to imagine another world and ready to fight for it. Here ends our reading. May we join in a few moments of reflection as our Mass choir sings As Tranquil Streams.
As tranquil streams that meet and merge in narrow one to seek the sea, our kindred hearts in guarded faith to serve the cause that shall be free, free from the bonds that bind the mind to narrow thought and lifeless feet, be from a social code that fails to serve the cause of human need. A freedom that reveres the past, but transcends thought and uses more, and bids the soul in search of truth adventure boldly and explore. Prophetic Church, the future waits. Your liberty ignite to be, and Lord, in the power of love, proclaim the truth that makes us free.
Everyone grew quiet. Over a dozen were loaded onto a truck to be taken away from the concentration camp. And among them was Robert Desnos, a surrealist poet who had been imprisoned for his work in the French Resistance. Understandably, the mood was very grim because people placed on such a truck never returned. As the truck arrived at its destination and came to a halt, no one spoke. Even the guards were silent. Incredibly, Desnos turned to the man next to him and took his hand. "Oh," he said, "I see that you have a very long lifeline, and you are going to have 3 children." Desnos was exuberant. His excitement was contagious. And so first one person and then another offered up a hand. And each prediction was for longevity and abundant joy. And as he read more palms, not only did the mood of the prisoners change, but that too of the guards. Perhaps the element of surprise had planted a shadow of doubt in the guards' minds about the usual outcome of this truck ride. Although they told themselves that these deaths were inevitable, this no longer seemed so certain. They were, in any case, so disoriented by this sudden change of mood among them, among those that they were about to kill, that they were unable to go through with the executions. So all of the prisoners, along with Desnos, were packed back into the truck and taken back to the barracks. Thus, Desnos saved his own life and the lives of others by using his imagination. Author Susan Griffin writes of this amazing moment. She says, "In the harsh world of the concentration camp, whose regime was designed to crush both body and spirit, how was it possible for Desnos to keep the larger possibilities of life alive in his mind? I find the thread of the answers in the lines of one of his poems, she wrote. Having said, having done what pleases me, I go right, I go left, and I love the marigold. Sometimes in life, we are inspired, motivated to do what we do by some somber call to duty, or some sense of grim determination. But other times, we are able to explore the meaning of life with such accord and to connect with deeper values. And we may find from that a new understanding of why we do what we do. Now, it is very human from a sense of higher responsibility for us to do something more out of obligation. But what happens in our lives when a sense of passion or a sense of connection, a power of hope or wonder inspires our imagination? This seems an especially powerful set of thoughts in light of our current world. We know that the context of our living has rarely been more significantly rooted in complexity and just plain difficulty. The virus continues to mutate, as they do, and our human reactions to the virus continue to slow the possibility of a post-pandemic existence. The daily news reiterates the animosity between the various factions within this country and the larger world, and the environment and the economy continue to go beyond just being a place of crisis. It is a time that calls for our deepest understanding of imagination and creativity, I believe. It is crucial that this creativity and imagination illuminate possibility when it would be so hard to see that possibility, that it create clarity when there is considerable chaos, to let our hearts and our minds inspire us when such heaviness might prevail. Our Unitarian Universalist tradition has been crystalline in at least two ways throughout our history. The first is that we, our humanity, our lives, our existence, we matter. Even if only from our own finite perspective, our lives are meaningful and powerful. And the second is that if our lives have significance, and it is critical that therefore that our lives reflect in the deepest way possible what we believe to be essential. Our heritage has worked so diligently for centuries to escape the via negativa, the negative way, to do things, for instance, out of a sense of fear or negative obligation. Our faith has affirmed instead the many ways that each person's life is important, and perhaps most radically in our living history in the 1930s, around 1933, when a group of clergy and great thinkers signed the first Humanist Manifesto, which declared the centrality of the human endeavor and our human ability to find our way, to learn from our lives and to grow, and to understand that as a core emphasis in religion. If we were to embrace the notion of the value of this human endeavor with new energy now, then the essence of what the Unitarian theologian Theodore Parker emphasized as character of a human being would become powerful to us. In the midst of the heated debate about slavery in America, Parker was an extremely outspoken and controversial abolitionist. He advocated civil disobedience around the fugitive slave law. In his exploration of what it means to live according to one's deeper principles, he once concluded in a speech to his peers, quote, "I do not pretend to understand the moral universe. The arc is a long one, and from what I see, I am sure it bends towards justice." These words would be adapted and used to great effect by the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. going back to Desnos. Desnos lived in challenging yet powerful times, and in different ways, but still significant ways, so do we today. It would be legitimate to view our current challenges as a society and as a world as not only scary, but overwhelming. But perhaps this time is calling for us to recall the root meaning of the word inspire, to breathe in life, to find a spirit of life, to return to the very essence of life. And so inspiration and its companion word imagination lead us to think about how we are living our lives and how it might connect with a larger context and with our deepest impetus for life itself. If we are to be more at one in our relationship with the people of this country and this planet, even in the midst of economic stress and pandemic, we each need to find our own voice in creating conversations that help us on the rocky way back to a sense of one nation, indivisible, and equal in access to liberty, justice, and health care for body and mind. Meg Riley, who is currently the co-moderator of the General Assembly since last year, and for over a decade was the minister of our largest and most diverse, far-flung congregation, the Church of the Larger Fellowship, believes that in times such as these, we need to recapture our prophetic spirit and let that energy flow through us. A prophetic spirit is an orientation that looks at the current world as it is, imagines its meaning, and what asks us to move forward. It isn't one that divorces itself from the past, but seeks what transcends the moment, the power that has flowed in the midst of our faith, sometimes for hundreds of years, looking at the current time and letting that powerful convergence speak to us and change how we are. She believes that in order to embody this in our lives and in our creativity when it is needed most, there are three important components: to embody radical caring, to orient ourselves squarely towards the future, and finally that our stories are formed in imagining and will that shapes meaning, but especially that it draws from the larger reservoir of the collective human understanding. The first point, embody radical caring. Theological thinkers on justice have weighed in on the importance of a prophetic imagination being connected in communities where people come into genuine, full-spirited places of connection. This is a place that must always seek to provide healing balm necessary for the lonely soul that, in one way or another, at different times we embody ourselves, at least now and then. And particularly in this time of greater isolation, more and more people are struggling to the point of cracking in their own sense of inner health. Tandeyaka, who was the author for our centering, is a Unitarian Universalist minister and theologian. And she attended a service at an evangelical Unitarian Universalist congregation in the inner city of Roxbury, Massachusetts. She was instantly impressed that the service was indeed packed with the homeless, the poor, people of all shapes, sizes, and colors, and had many of the trappings of a more evangelical service, but the theology was thoroughly Unitarian Universalist. There was one point in the service when the congregation had an altar call. In it, each person had a chance to wait in line while the congregation sang quietly, and in each of their individual moments to move forward and whisper into the minister's ear something about their life and receive a personal prayer in response. She watched as face after face lit up with an expression of relief as they returned to their seat. That ritual took a little over 30 minutes in a 2-hour service. She and a colleague that was attending with her, who was a minister at a large and prestigious Unitarian Universalist congregation, found themselves talking about the altar call as they left the service. Tandeyaka asked, "What do you think would happen if we initiated such a ritual in our mainstream Unitarian Universalist congregations?" She reports that an odd smile broke out on her colleague's face, and he leaned in and said, "Here's what would happen in my congregation. Everyone would line up, and the very first person would whisper in my ear, 'After the service, I want to talk with you about your sermon.'" They argued, though, that imagining a sense of how we might create opportunities for healing and vulnerability and connection are essential. They return us to the real root of the idea radical, which is relating to or affecting the fundamental nature of something, far-reaching and thorough. In this time, we are called to find powerful ways to return to affirming love and service in ways that often will take us into uncomfortable places because they are places that are real and raw and powerful. The second one is orienting ourselves squarely towards the future, and more importantly, that this future orientation is rooted in hope. Meg Riley uses the old joke of two identical twins who on their birthday are presented, apparently from parents destined to have made it successful in some reality television show, a room full of manure. One twin, the pessimist, cries out in despair, "Horse manure, I knew this would be a horrible birthday." The other twin, the optimist, grabs a shovel and starts digging like mad. The pessimistic twin asks through sobs, "What are you doing?" To which the optimist replies, "With all this horse manure, there has to be a pony in here somewhere." Riley uses this to illustrate that optimism is very different than hope, which is what we need to seek. Hope would be yet a third child that gazes at the manure and thinks, okay, this part can be converted into biodiesel, the rest can be fertilizer, and we'll grow a garden, sell the produce, and save up for a pony. Imagination, truly rooted in hope, does not try to make the world anything other than it is. From a place of truly seeing the world, we work out what we can to make a difference. We lean into the truth, but we also seek to find within it possibility and energy, and often that requires a group, a community, to really inspire that full imagination. We need each other more than ever in this time. And so finally, if we were to recall the stories that help us know these deeper and more transcendent truths, then we would make sure that our stories are indeed rooted in community. Not just in our own community, although those stories will help us know who we are, but in the larger sense of community as well. Who we are in the bigger sense, in the larger connections. Paul Rasser, who is the director of the Center for the Study of Religious Freedom and a professor of interdisciplinary studies at Virginia Wesleyan College, who is also an ordained Unitarian Universalist minister, states that our theological openness is both a gift and a considerable struggle. He says in the ways that we talk about what we believe, we need to be careful that we seek language that builds bridges, not only within our community, but also choosing language that is identifiable in the larger world, that helps us communicate with each other and be an ongoing conversation about what we believe, and very importantly, how those beliefs inspire us to act in the world. He quotes James Luther Adams, who said that openness without more articulation can produce the mind that is simply open at both ends. As we move into this time of challenge, and we know that it will continue. Together, may we think carefully about love and service in our hearts and our lives. May we speak earnestly about our convictions and seek to build together a vision of hope. These are important times, without a doubt, but the way that we choose to journey will make all the difference. May we not journey with despondence, shame, or judgment as our closest companion. The Hopi elders said, "Gather yourselves, see who is in the water with you, and celebrate. All we do now must be done in a sacred manner and in celebration." There are always things in life, always, that are beautiful, lovely, simple, extraordinary, ordinary blessings that sometimes call us to the only possible response of thankfulness. It requires imagination sometimes to connect with them meaningfully. Always there are events and circumstances that might overwhelm our spirits and mire us in despair, and yet we may always love the Marigolds. Choose your way. Use your imagination for defiance, for stories that embrace, that create engagement, that share life. As Angela Organtala, who was read by Reverend Beth a few weeks ago, says, "When it comes to our future, we have hope, we have fear, but sometimes we forget that we also have influence. And that means we can choose the futures we want to work towards." She concludes, "And so do I. Nothing is written in stone." So may it be. Will you join me in our closing hymn, hymn number 6, "Just as Long as I Have Breath."
Just as long as I have breath, I must answer yes to life. Though with pain I made my way, still with hope I live each day. If they ask what I did well, tell them I said yes to life. Just as long as vision lasts, I must answer yes to truth. In my dream and in my dark, always that elusive spark. If they ask what I did well, tell them I said yes to truth. Just as long as my heart beats, I must answer yes to love. Disappointment pierced me through, still I kept on loving you. If they ask what I did best, tell them I said yes to love.
As we prepare to end our service together, I invite you to return to your candle or your chalice and to extinguish it as we extinguish ours here. Bill Sinkford, one of our Unitarian Universalist ministers, wrote, "There is so much work to do. We've only begun to imagine justice and mercy. Help us hold fast to our vision of what can be. May we see the hope in our history and find the courage and the voice to work for that constant rebirth of freedom and justice. That is our dream." We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of wisdom, the warmth of love and community, or the fire of our commitment to justice and compassion. These remain in our lives until we gather again. Blessings on your day ahead.